So, hi everyone, thank you for attending this webinar. So today I'm going to share with you a presentation regarding Produmex WMS picking flows. So I will try to talk about various aspects of the flows and talk about the picking itself. So the fact to go in the warehouse and to gather the goods, collect them to be able to ship them for certain customers. So today agenda, I'm going to first talk about the WMS basics, so the picking basics, sorry, regarding WMS features. I'm going to give you an overview of the most important settings that comes with Produmex WMS and that will have impact on the pick list flows. I'm going also to show you the different picking strategy and options that WMS offered out of the shelf. And then I'm going to finish with 3 examples of flow. So I'm going to do live demo for 3 different flows using WMS mobile device. And we'll finish with a Q&A session and some tips also that I want to share with you at the end of the meeting. So, as an introduction, I'm going back to the basics. So, a WMS pick list, a Produmex WMS pick list, can be created, can be based on different objects from SAP. So, those are the 4 objects that support WMS pick list. So it can be created from a sales order, from an AR reserve invoice, an inventory transfer request, and a production order. Today, I'm going more to focus on the sales document, so the first 3 documents you can see in the list, not a production order picking flow, but it's almost the same finally. And the pick list creation in WMS have to be done in 2 steps. So from the different document, the base document, first step is to create a pick list proposal. So the proposal consequence, it will be a stock reservation. So it will go and check the stock, applies the various conditions, the various criteria that comes from the customer, from the sales order, from the different settings that have been done in your database, and we'll allocate certain part of the stock from a pretty high level, and that can go to a very detailed level if we need to go to the batch directly. A pick list proposal is not visible on the scanner, so it's a first step where we are making sure that the goods are in the warehouse and will be pickable and so then shippable to the customer. This is what we make sure at this stage. And then from pick list proposal, we give the possibility to create the final pick list. So the final pick list will be then visible on the scanner. So that's the stage where we release the pick list in the warehouse, and it will take over all the pick list proposal reservation. So if the pick list proposal includes a batch, then the pick list, the final pick list will include the same batch, the exact same batch. And we copy those information to the and give them, share them with the warehouse keeper. In terms of flow, so I will have 2 slides. The first one to just explain quickly pick and pack flow. So the pick and pack flow would be a flow where we are going to pick the goods and pack them during the same flow. So we are going to put the goods directly into a final logistic unit, a shipping logistic unit, and allow us to ship it directly. So when we do a pick list, when we go to pick the goods in the warehouse, usually there are 2 flows that can be distinguished. The first one is when we go and pick items. So we pick units, finally, of goods in the warehouse. And the second one will be when we pick full pallets, so what we call also SSCCs in the warehouse. And so you will see that it's not exactly the same information that are required from the warehouse picker. So if we go and pick item, in that case, we will try to check more information. We'll try to, we will have the possibility to ask the warehouse picker to scan the bin location where it is picking the item. We will ask the picker to scan the item and or the batch also if it's something needed. Then the user will need to complete the quantity, and at the end of that, we will create an SSCC, so a new shipping logistic unit for the sales order. If we look at the full pallet flow, you can see there is only 2 steps, because in that case, you will just have to scan the SSCC and that's it. We don't need to scan the location. We don't need to scan the item, because we assume that scanning the SSCC is enough. You cannot invent that code in the case. So if you scan an SSCC, then that means that you are picking the right item. We are checking in the background if it's the right item and the right criteria. So you don't need to scan anything else. We are able then to say if there is an error or not. And then at the end of this process, all the SSCCs created will be moved to a shipping dock and will then be either shipped directly by WMS, or there will be a shipping step that will need to occur to ship the goods to the final customer. Almost same flow, but a second example, including a packing step. So I'm starting same. I will distinguish item and full SSCC picking. And you can see here that the final step of the item picking will be to select a movable location. In that case, as I'm not creating a pallet during the picking flow, I will have to use what we call a movable location. So I will talk a lot about movable location during the webinar. I will have some pictures to illustrate it, so you will probably more understand what I'm talking about. But it's a trolley, it's a cart, it's a temporary bin location, finally, that you can move within the warehouse, and that will help us to locate the goods during the picking phase. And again, the difference between that flow and the previous one is that we are not creating any shipping pallets. We are just picking the goods, and we create the shipping pallets after picking. In the meantime, we can pick the full pallet, so same flow. There is nothing changing here. We are picking pallets, so we don't need to use a movable location. And at the end, there will be an additional step here. That will be a packing step. So we will ask the user to go to a packing station and then to do the packing flow. So the packing flow will be to allocate the goods to the right size order and to new SSCCs, or even we also give the possibility to put the item picked here on the top of a full pallet. That's also something possible, because physically you can do it, so we can support it with our WMS. And also at the end, when all those SSCC are finished and the information have been entered in the system, then they are moved to the shipping dock, and you have the possibility to ship it to the final customer. There are 2 reasons to use a packing flow after picking. The first reason is if you go and you pick several sales orders in the meantime. And so finally, in the movable location, you are mixing the items that will then belong to different sales orders, so to different customers. So that means that you need to have that stage to separate the item per sales order. And so then to make sure that you will ship the right item, the right quantity to the right customer. That's one reason. And so you gain time during picking. The other reason that is also pretty common is to have a second control, a second check. And so in that case, it's our customer is expecting to have one warehouse keeper to do the picking. So he will enter the information and put the goods into a proper logistic unit, and then to have a second pair of eyes that will do the packing, so scan again each item, and we'll finally check if it's the right item, the right quantity for the final customer. So those are the 2 reasons why to use a packing flow with WMS. Now, in terms of settings in our WMS, you know, probably most of you know that we have many settings. That's a strength and also a complexity of our product. So regarding the picking, the most important settings are placed in the pick list controller. So it's in the organizational structure, and then you get to select here pick list controller. And then you will have a list of settings that will impact our flows. And finally, the combination of those settings will define the way that WMS will work during the picking flows. There are other very important setting lists that can be also reviewed. It's the pick list proposal generator. So in that case, you will have settings that will impact the pick list proposal directly, so the step before picking. And so you will have impact on the stock allocation, for example. And another setting list is the picking for production controller. So in case you want to have impact on the picking for production, then there is a specific controller for it. So it's distinguished to have some settings. All those settings are pretty well described into our wiki. So I really encourage you to have a view to the wiki. They are really great explanation. And if you have an issue, it's really the place where to go to check to find the right settings on what to act and to obtain the right behaviors. So that's for me the most important screen. Then one also another screen that where we have some settings applied is the SAP screen for shipping types. So you probably all know those screens. It's a regular one, a standard one from SAP. And when you install WMS, we are creating UDF into that table, and we are changing also the UI, adding those UDF into the user interface. So you can see here, I got my shipping type screen, the SAP one with my shipping types name. And so I will have a bunch of settings coming based on the shipping types. And so the first one, which is the most important one, is the automatic shipping. That means that when you will finish to pick and pack a sales order, WMS will directly ship the goods. So WMS will directly generate the delivery note in SAP. So you don't have to manage shipping of the goods anymore. It's done by WMS directly, automatic. So there is no user action expected. For most of the business, it doesn't really make sense because when the goods are picked, then there is a staging phase where they are waiting the truck to be shipped. But in some businesses, it really makes sense. It's really helpful to have these features because you are saving times, you are saving operation that can be probably making no sense. I personally have a use case in my past. It was in a company where there was always an empty trailer in the facility. The 3PL was always leaving an empty trailer, always, always. And so finally, when this company, those guys, they were picking an order, at the end, they were just pushing the pallet into the empty trailer. And so in that case, they were not managing any shipping. So it was really making sense to have that setting set to yes and having the delivery note generated as soon as the picking was done. So in that case, they have the possibility to fold the delivery note to place it into the plastic pouch on the pallet and then to push the pallet into that empty trailer in the facility. So could really make sense because you gain time and you anticipate delivery note creation, and so really can make user life easier. Other settings then will be the automatic invoicing. So after delivery note creation, we can also generate the IR invoice. It's less common, but that's also something that we can do if the customer wants to invoice as soon as the delivery note is created, or also in terms of custom documents. Usually you want to have the IR invoice generated, so that's also something that we can supply directly when we generate the delivery note. And on the right side, you can see some other information that could be catch during the shipping. So we can ask the user to enter the license plate of the truck. We can ask the user to enter the driver name, the trailer number, or even the tracking number during the picking flow, or at the end of the picking flow during the shipping flow. So that's a place where you can find those kind of settings. And again, it's based on the shipping type. That means that it's not a global setting at the company level, it's at the shipping type level. Those shipping types, they are settable at the business partner level. So you can have a different shipping type per customer. That's a possibility. So you can have different behaviors depending on the customer. And you can also define it at the sales order level. So for each sales order, you can then act on that settings and have different behaviors if it makes sense for you. Next screen is the pick list type screen. So this is a Produmex screens, also available in SAP. In that screen, you will create a list of pick list types. So it's a name for different pick list finally. Same thing, you'll be able to link that pick list type to a customer and so have a default value per customer. And you'll be able also to define it per sales order. So the first setting is interesting here is this one. So it's the possibility finally to split the pick list based on the item pick type. So item pick type is a setting at the item level, as the name mentioned. And so that could be when you have a very specific item that required specific action during picking. So it could make sense to split the pick list into separated pick list at the end. And that will make the picking flow more efficient. Other setting, almost the same ID but not the same criteria, is to split the pick list based on the full pallet and the item pick. So this will be an example during today's webinar. I will have one case with that flow, and I will have a sales order that will be divided into two pick lists because I will have a part of full pallets and a part of units that I will need to pick. So it won't be the same location, it won't be the same picker at the end. And then other very important setting from that screen, very useful, is the ask dimension option. So we can ask the picker or the packer, what are the dimensions of the shipping SSCC? So we can ask and catch the weight, the length, the width, the height of the SSCC that are creating during the picking or packing flow. And so that is pretty useful when you are connecting to a 3PL, to a third-party logistic partner, because catching that information, then we'll be able to send it to this 3PL, and this 3PL will be able then to calculate the size of the truck it needs to send to the location. This pick list type settings can be then associated to pick list type per user. So you can also go a bit further and you can allocate certain pick list type to certain user. And so finally, also manage authorization based on those pick list types. Then next slide, it's the key points, in my opinion, on how to determine the right picking strategy. So for me, there is two main points regarding picking strategy. The first one is, are you going to make order picking or are you going to make wave picking? So if I rephrase it, is are you going to make one pick list per sales order or are you going to have one pick list for several sales orders? And so finally, you mutualize the picking action, and so you will gain time. So to determine that, I will suggest several criteria. So to distinguish order picking and wave picking, first one, obviously, is the number of lines per sales order. It's if you have big sales order with a big number of lines, then I'm quite sure you are going to do order picking. You don't need to mutualize them. You don't need to gain time because picking an order is already long enough. So you won't pick several orders in the meantime. In the contrary, if you have only few lines, 1 to, I don't know, 3 lines per sales order, 100% of time, 99% of time, you are going to do wave picking because in that case, it doesn't make sense to go in the warehouse and to pick only one item, then to go back to the dock. Your warehouse keeper will do a marathon, and so finally you will lose time just walking into the warehouse but not picking the goods. So it's probably the most important criteria. And another criteria to distinguish order picking versus wave picking depend on the size and the complexity of the product. If you are picking big products, then you will probably mostly go to order picking because you won't have the possibility to pick several products of big size on doing one wave because you won't have the place on the pallet or on the cart to have several big products. So you will probably more go to an order picking. And same thing, complexity of the product. So if the product require specific action or specific logistic devices, then you will probably go for order picking because usually complexity means that the picking is a bit longer. And so to avoid to have too long picking, you will keep them splitted and keep it picking sales order per sales order and not to mutualize them. Then the other key points for me is, do you want to pick with only one picker or with several pickers? So mono picker versus multi pickers. One people, several people doing the same job on the same pick list in the meantime. So in that case, the criteria to determine that would be the number of products per sales order. If, again, you have lots of product on the sales order, could make sense to split it on different pickers because in that case, you will make the picking going quicker and so you'll be able to ship it quickly to the customer. The size of the warehouse will be also a very important criteria because if you have a huge warehouse, then it could make sense to divide it per zones. And so to avoid to warehouse keeper to go from A to Z into the warehouse, then it could make sense to say, okay, A and B will be to picker 1, L, C and D will be to picker 2. That is something that could make sense. And so in that case, you will go for multi-picker and you will go for zone picking. And then the last one is if you need to use specific logistic equipment during picking. So that's something not pretty common, but that can exist. And so, for example, I found that picture of a forklift that is equipped to go and pick and carry barrels. And so that means that if on your sales order you get barrels plus other product, then you will need to split the pick list because one of the picker will be able to drive that forklift truck, but the other one will not have that logistic equipment. So you will split the sales order, you will split the pick list on different pick lists because it will be different pickers that will work on it because of specific logistic constraints. So finally, a key result of this strategy, of those key points, will be to avoid too many unproductive moves in the warehouse. So that's very important. When you look at picking, you want to make it as efficient as possible. You want to gain time. You want to be able to ship the biggest number of sales orders per day. And so you want to make the picking flow the most efficient possible. So you will try to avoid too many unproductive moves in the warehouse, so avoid marathon. And the other one is to accelerate order treatment. If picking one sales order takes you half a day, then it's too long. You need to make it quicker, so you need probably to split it, or you need to find other way to organize your warehouse and to make it quicker. Then the different picking option that will be provided by Produmex WMS. So I'm going to list all the biggest picking flows that we have and try to explain them quickly and give an example. So the first one is order picking. So I mentioned it before. You go and pick one sales order in the warehouse. So that's usually for business with lower order volume, so not hundreds of sales orders per day, and with bigger complex picking, so bigger complex product. And so typically an example that I used to know in the past is if your business, I knew that is to sell water heater, then in that case you will do order picking because you cannot pick dozens of water heater in the meantime. You will pick them one by one or maybe pallet by pallet, but in that case, it's order picking. It doesn't make sense to go and do multi sales order in the meantime. Wave picking. So wave picking is to go and pick many orders into one pick list. So usually it's because you have smaller number of unique items on the sales order. So you have a limited number of lines on the sales order. So in that case, you are going to go and pick several sales orders in the meantime. And so that's typically the business of a spare part company. When you receive spare part sales order, usually it's 1 to 3 lines. And so in that case, this is also why you are going to group the sales order and create only one wave at the end, one pick list, and mutualize the flow in the warehouse. Multi-picking is based on wave picking, so you are going to pick several sales order in the meantime, but even more you will use sectional carts. So you will have a separate section with no cart. So I will have an example for that. I will try to explain it a bit deeper. And so that's typically the e-commerce business that will require it, because again, like the spare parts, from e-commerce, most of the sales order are 1 to 2 articles. They are very small articles. And so in that case, you always go and do wave picking. And so as you have a huge number of sales order, it's make it easier to use multi-picking to identify properly the sales order on the cart directly. Zone picking. So zone picking, another flow also I will illustrate just on the next steps. And when you have several pickers that will work on the same order or orders, can be one sales order or several sales order, because the warehouse is organized in different zones. So it can be because the warehouse is huge, as I mentioned before, LA, LB, and for picker 1 and C and D for picker 2. But the classic example for that is when you are working in the food business and when you have fresh foods. So usually you will have a frozen zone, a cool zone, and a dry goods area. And so you won't have the same guy, the same picker that will go and pick in every single area. So in that case, makes totally sense to use zone picking and to split the pick list on the different zones of the area of the warehouse. And the last flow we have in our portfolio is the ad hoc picking. So the ad hoc picking is our quickest flow. We have a way to go and pick very, very quickly, but it's also a flow that will give a lot of flexibility to the picker. So the picker will have the possibility to bypass the FIFO or FIFO control and to select another stock to complete a pick list. So that's usually, for example, something that can match with some businesses like the metal industry, because there are many batches in the warehouse and there is no real expiry date. So in that case, it's not really an issue if the picker is going to pick from another location for the same item, even if it's not the same batch, if it's not exactly the FIFO, but the idea would be to gain time at the end. So it's a specific flow in that case for some specific industry. So I'm done with the first part of this webinar, based on to give you a bit of context and a bit of overview of what exists. Now I'm going to jump onto 3 different cases. So I'm going to do a live demo based on what I've done before to give you 3 examples of how to use our product. So the first example will be a sales order that will require some full pallets and some item picking, so some units. So in my example, I will have one sales order, as I mentioned, and I will have a mix of full pallet and of units. So the consequence of that is it won't be the same warehouse picker. Why? Because one will be using a forklift truck and one will be on foot with a trolley, with a cart, or even with a single pallet, but it will be on foot. So it's not the same picker in the warehouse. So this is why it makes totally sense to split the sales order on 2 different pick lists, because it's not the same picker. So my sales order will be including an item which default quantity per pallet is 1,000 units, sorry. The order quantity will be 3,050. And so you can see that there will be 3 full pallets, that will be 1 pick list, and there will be 50 units, that will be another pick list. So just to show you how it works, I will go in SAP. So now you should see my SAP. You can see my item here. I'm talking about craft bags. Maybe I need to make it a bit bigger. I didn't think about it before. I should have. Okay. So I got my order with 3,050. And so I will go here and I will click on generate pick list proposal. And you can see that from that single line, I got 2 pick list proposals generated. And so I will generate my pick list. And now it's done. And if I check my pick list, if I open it, I have 1 pick list with the 50 units. So this one will drive me to the picking location and I will pick the 50 units directly. And the other pick list, if no surprises, will be for the 3 pallets, so for 3,000 items. And so this one will drive me into bulk location where I'm going to pick full pallets. So that's pretty interesting in this case to use this kind of flow. So I'm going to open my mobile device. So this is the Produmex WMS mobile device that I'm quite sure almost all of you knows already. And I'm going to go in the picking menu and I'm going to select my 2 pick list I have here. So the first one will be my item picking. So I will have to pick my 50 units. And so it tells me, okay, you got to go in A021 and go and pick the bag and the 50 units. So I click on next. Do you want to use movable location? So today, I don't want to use movable location. I want to create directly SSCCs. And so here it tells me, okay, you need to scan the product. On another flow, with another option, I can activate and say to the system, force me to scan the bin location. But in my case, I don't want, because I assume that if I scan the product, I'm at the right location. We are talking about picking location, so on the floor location where somebody on foot can go and pick. And so in that case, I assume, that's my personal feeling, that I don't need to scan the location. As far as I scan the right item, then I'm good. I don't need to check it. I have only 1 pick location per item, so that's enough. That's something the way I see picking, and it prevents also user to scan bin location. So it can prevent the user for 1,000, 10,000 scan a day. So it can gain a lot of time also to do it this way. So that's why I'm working this way without scanning the bin location, but directly scanning the product. So that's a setting I play with when I'm doing picking. So I scan the item barcode, the GTIN 14. And then the system will tell me, okay, you got to pick 50. So can you enter the quantity you're picking? I say 50. Okay, next. And that's it. This pick list will be done. And so I will have and go, okay, item are picked. I got my shipping label here. It will be released. Okay, so just to give you an overview, I placed in the system that I want to obtain a shipping label when I'm picking goods. So here I got my SSCC and I got my item and quantity on that shipping logistic unit. So I obtain it. No reprint. So this pick list is done. And now I got to do the second pick list, so the 557. And this one will be for full pallets. And so I click on next, and you can see I got 3 lines for 1,000 each. And it tells me, okay, A013, A013, A022. So I will have to go in first location, A013, and I will have to scan the first SSCC. So I'm in front of the pallet, I scan the SSCC, and I'm done. I don't have to scan anything else. WMS check if it's the right item, if it's the right information, and if everything matches, then go next. So you don't need to specify the location, the item. That's known by WMS, and it's checked in the background. So I've scanned the second SSCC, and last one, I got to go in A022, and I got to scan the SSCC again, and items are picked. My picking is done. And so from now on, my goods are on the shipping dock, and so I can go, I can ship them, I can play on the menu. I have additional information to combine the SSCC. So if I want to put the 50 items on something existing, or I can go and I can ship here directly my pick list. So I will, no, I will ship. Yeah, I get everything here. So it retrieves that there is 4 pallets, and so I just have to scan again my SSCC. The truck is here, and so I'm putting the pallet into the truck. And when I'm done, oh, I didn't catch the right information. And for the last one, I will just press next, and the system will understand that I've loaded all the pallets, so then it can close the sales order and generate the delivery notes. As a sorry, as a tip, when you are doing tests on computer with the mobile device, if you double click on an information, it is copied. So for example, if I double click on the customer name and code, it's copied. I got the Control C action. If I do it on the SSCC, then I got my SSCC. So I just have to put my 00 first, the identifier, and then scan the SSCC, and it's done. And now WMS is generating the delivery note in SAP. It will print it in the warehouse, because that's something also pretty common, to print it in the warehouse to be able to put it into one of the pallets. So here I got my delivery note printed, which is 1272. And so if I go in SAP, I refresh, my sales order is closed. My delivery note is generated. Okay. And one option also pretty useful is to activate the packing slip completion. So to activate the WMS, we'll put the information into SAP packing slip. And so you can see that I got my SSCC that are here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got my 4 SSCCs. And for every SSCC, I got here the item that belong to that SSCC. So that's something also pretty useful, pretty common when you work with WMS inside business one. Going back. So that was the first example, first case, mix of full pallets and item picking. Second case will be zone picking. So I talked about it just before. I'm going to pick only one sales order, so I'm still doing order picking, but my warehouse will be split into zones. So it won't be the same warehouse picker. And today my zones will be based on temperature. I'm working probably in food business. And so I will have a cool zone, and my warehouse picker will be wearing a coat or quite a hot sweatshirt. And an ambient zone where my warehouse picker will be probably wearing only a t-shirt. It doesn't need anything warmer. Can also again be used if you want to split the warehouse A and B to one picker, A, C, and D to another one. That's also something that can be usable for that matter. But the classic example is to base it on the temperature. I see I have a question. I will answer it later. Then on my order, I will have 2 items. I will have some milk that will be in my cool zone, and I will have some coffee filter that will be in my ambient zone. So I will divide my sales order on that. So this is my sales order 1333. And so you can see one line for the milk, one line for the filter. And so in that case, I will come back on the mobile device. I'm going back to the menu, and here I will find my zone picking that will be on the third button. And so I will select the pick list that I've generated before. So it's this one, 549, okay? And when I will click on it, WMS will see that there is 2 zones on that pick list, one called 8A, which is my ambient zone, and one called cool zone. Normally, I should be able to see only one zone because that's what makes sense. I can only pick the goods in the cool zone or pick the goods in the AA, depending on my user profile. As for the demo purpose today, I can see both zones and I will go and pick the first one. So I'm going to first pick my filter in the first zone. So it tells me to go to A024, okay, no movable location, and it's a picking zone. So I need only to scan GIN 14 and to enter the quantity I want to pick. Okay, items are picked, and it has created an SSCC 14670, and it told me to push them into shipping dock 1. No more item to pick. Yeah, I'm the ambient picker, so I don't have anything else to pick. So I'm going back to the pick list where I need to select my next job. Today for the demo, I'm going back to the pick list and I will have to do the second part, the zone where the temperature is cooled. And so I'm selecting it. I'm the cooled picker now, and it told me to go to C1 bin location to pick the milk. No movable location still. And now I got a question, hey, for that customer, WMS identify there is an existing logistic unit. So what do you want to do? Do you want to generate a secondary logistic unit for the milk? Or do you want to put the goods on the same logistic unit because you know how to find it and you will finally put the goods on the same pallet? So I will do it this way. I will go and I will put it on the existing logistic unit. And now I got to go to C1 and I got to scan my GTIN 14 barcode, this one, to identify my milk. And then it will ask me, what is the quantity of milk you are picking? So I will say 2, items are picked, and I'm still on the same SSCC. So I combine the 2 items on the same SSCC, and I've activated for that sales order the automatic shipping. So WMS in the background is shipping the goods, and the delivery note have been generated here with my filter and my milk. So it has been generated in SAP and printed next to me, so I can put it in one of the pallets or in the single pallet, sorry, I've shipped to identify what have been loaded in the truck. So that was the second example, second case. Let me go back to my slides. And then the last case for today, last example, will be a multi-picking flow. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick 2 sales orders. In the meantime, I prepare the case in advance. I'm going to use a multi-sectional cart. So this is what can look like a multi-sectional cart, can be different way to have it, but that's one example. And so every level of that cart will have a specific name. So will be a specific location in my WMS. And for every location, for every name, I will have a barcode on the cart to be able to scan it to identify on which location I place my goods. And so usually, not usually, what you will do, you will put one sales order on one section of the cart to split them, to separate them, and so to not then be able to be able to pack them easily in a second stage. So that flow will require to go to a packing station after picking to create shipping SSCC, because during the flow, as we put the goods on section of the cart, it's still a location for WMS. So there is no SSC generated. It's a temporary location for the picking, and then you need to go to a packing station and generate SSCC. So I will show you one way to do it. There are multiple ways to do it, multiple packing flow, but I will illustrate it once today. And so here is a case I've done. So I got 2 sales order, 1336, 1337, with some common items. So milk and filters are common, and I got my bag that is only existing for 1 sales order. I've already generated the pick list, and I've already generated the wave. So my wave is the 555, and it's including 2 pick lists, 525 and 526, because every sales order still have 1 pick list, the wave is finally a link between the pick list to be able to go and pick several sales order. So finally several pick lists in the meantime. And so for that, I'm going to use the multi-picking flow because I want to use sectional cards. So this is why I'm going to use multi-picking flow to force the system to ask me for sectional cards. So I'm going here, I'm going to select my wave. And now system tells me, okay, WMS tell me that's what you will have to pick. So you will have and go and pick milk, 4 units, 2 units, filter, bag, and again filter. So I can see I got 2 locations for the filter because probably I don't have enough stock in that location. So it pushed me a second time in another location. And you can see here the quantity are not consolidated because I'm using a sectional card. So because the system knows that I want to distinguish each sales order, I have distinguished lines. If I'm using another flow with a regular movable location, then I can have an option to consolidate the quantity. And so to have only 6 milk to pick instead of 4 plus 2. Could make sense, but in that case, I don't have the detail of how many quantity per sales order at that stage. I will have it later on the packing station. For the multi-sectional cart, it is mandatory to do it this way with quantity per sales order still. So I'm going to C1, I'm going to pick my milk. And so same thing, I need to scan my, sorry, GTIN 14, identify my milk, and to enter the quantity. So I'm going to pick the 4 for this sales order on the left side. Okay, and now it tells me, okay, please identify the movable location, identify the section on your card. So I'm going to tell him, okay, let's put it on SC11. Okay, so SC11 will be for sales order on the left side. Okay, now I'm to next item. I'm still on milk. I'm on the milk location, so makes sense. And so same thing, I'm scanning, sorry, I didn't place the right information. I'm scanning still the GTIN 14 to make sure I'm picking the right item. I got to enter the quantity and it asked me, okay, please scan the movable location. I can scan the same movable location, but I will have an error. Why? Because I got one section per sales order. I cannot mix 2 sales order on a section. This is not making sense for the flow I'm following. So I will have an error. This movable location is already used, so you cannot use it a second time. So I will have to specify another section of the same cart, and in that case, that will work. Items are picked, and so that means that sales order 2 here will be on SC12, not on SC11 anymore. Next item, this one, okay. So I got to scan GTIN 14, quantity is 3, and it tells me, you can see now the system, now WMS knows that this sales order, this item, so I'm picking, sorry, the bag here, the 3 bags, it knows that it belongs to SC11. So I don't have the choice anymore. System tells me that I need to put it on this section of the cart, not on another section. So I put it on SC11. It's done. Next item, filter, quantity of 1. So same thing, I'm scanning, put the quantity, and same thing, system will tell me the section of the cart will still be SC11 because it belongs to that sales order, not the other one. So don't mix the goods. And so please put it on that section and scan the section. So this is what I'm doing. And now items are picked. So my left sales order is picked and I got only 1 remaining items for the right sales order. So I scanned the GTIN 14, I enter the quantity, and now it told me that I need to put the goods on the other section of the cart, so SC12, because it's the other sales order. So I don't have the question. My wave is done. Sorry, my wave is done. And so the goods are waiting on my movable location. So I now have one packing step to do. And so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do a packing. So what I'm going to use, it's I'm going to use the mobile packing. So it's a step directly on the mobile device. And this one is done for eyes control. So the idea behind that would be to have another resource to do that, to do the packing. So first question for that flow is to identify the movable location. So I will scan the first one for this sales order. So it retrieve, this is the customer address you will pack the goods for. And so I need to select the product I'm going to pack. So I see I have 3 products on that movable location. And now it asks me what is the quantity. So you can see it is not suggesting me any quantity. So it doesn't tell me that I have 3 bags I need to pack for this sales order. So this is why this flow is usable only when you have 1 sales order per movable location. So you don't have to split the movable location to different sales order because you don't have the quantity needed. So I know that on SC11, I have the exact quantity for that sales order. So I'm taking the goods from the movable location and I can see, okay, I have 3 bags. Okay, that's good. It's packed. And now I will be able to pack the other items either on the same SSCC, okay? Or if my SSCC is finished, is full, then I can click on finish the SSCC. Okay, oh, sorry, print the label. So this is the first SSCC. And now I will take the remaining item, my milk, and I will put it on the second SSCC. And so the milk, you can see I got 4. I got 4 on my movable location. And so I click on next and the items are packed. Okay, second SSCC. And that's it. And I'm done. And so now my goods here are packed. And so they are ready to get shipped. And they are waiting on the shipping location to get shipped. That would be the main thing. The same thing, sorry, for the second sales order. What I will have to do is to put the second section of the movable location. I will retrieve the other customer, and I will have the same thing, my goods here, that I will be able to pack on one or several shipping SSCC, depending on what I want to do.